Hello, this is Dr. J. Davidson from drjdavidson.com. I'm excited to welcome you to this very special segment of the Chronic Lyme Disease Summit number 2. According to the CDC, there are more people affected with Lyme disease each year than breast cancer. Today, my special guest is Dr. Todd Watts, and we're going to be exploring killing parasites to kill Lyme disease. But before we do, a little bit about Dr. Watts. Dr. Todd Watts is a national board certified chiropractic physician in Idaho, a functional wellness practitioner, and is licensed with the Pastoral Medical Association. Dr. Watts' passion for helping others restore their health so they can live their true purpose stems from his journey in overcoming his health struggles. His journey began at the age of 28 when he had Epstein-Barr virus, and by the time he was 40, he struggled with arthritic pain in his hands, wrists, low back, shoulders, along with chronic headaches and muscle tightness in the neck, shoulders, and back. He also struggled with food and seasonal allergies, chronic fatigue, night sweats, muscle fatigue, and twitches, brain fog, and memory issues. Attending a medical conference on Lyme disease, he identified with many of the symptoms of Lyme and its co-infections. He later tested positive with a blood test for chronic Lyme infection. On his journey with treating Lyme disease, he seemed to go through cyclical patterns of feeling good and then crashing. He met another practitioner who told him he had parasites, which was causing many of the symptoms he was dealing with, as well as the cyclical pattern of them. Having gone through many Lyme protocols, he realized that addressing the parasites was vital in overcoming the Lyme disease and the rest of his symptoms. Today, Dr. Todd Watts feels great and has sustained energy to allow him to help others, enjoy time with his family, and live his true purpose. Dr. Todd Watts is a good friend of mine as well. Welcome to the Chronic Lyme Disease Summit number 2.
Thanks, Dr. J. Good to be here.
Well, I'm excited for the listeners to hear from you, Dr. Watts, because you have some just great insight on this parasite side of things. And you're so knowledgeable in so many other areas too, so I don't want to just say parasites. But for the listeners, I guess, can we dive into Lyme disease and maybe some other pieces that we need to understand with Lyme disease besides just parasites, but maybe even the gut immune connection?
Yeah, that would be great. My philosophy, as well as most functional medicine practitioners that I know, always go back to you got to heal the gut to heal autoimmune disease or really any chronic illness. And so that's where my focus begins in this process. And when there is an issue with gut health, parasites is what we have to look at, as well as just chronic mucus buildup that's in the intestines that we really want to take care of and clear out. So there's also a huge correlation, as you said, about parasites and Lyme being inside of the parasites. And so those are the both angles I look at in dealing with getting someone better at the beginning.
I said the gut besides parasites, but you're actually finding that one of the main issues that people have gut issues is from parasites in general then.
Yeah, a lot of people that I've seen have a lot of food sensitivities or food allergies or major immune reactions to the things that they eat. And so what's creating these big immune reactions? Well, part of that process is the fact that their system is just overactive. So having an overactive immune system will then cause them to react to many other things. And one of the low-lying hidden infections in there, a lot of times, are the parasites. So I've seen it with so many people clinically, and what really is the proof is what comes out in the toilet. And so our motto in our office is that it's better out than in. So don't worry about what comes out. Just be grateful it's out of you.
In the words of Shrek, right?
Yeah, in the words of Shrek, yeah.
So when I believe, the standard American thought process with parasites is that we don't have these in America. What's your thought process on parasites and the fact that maybe it's just more third world countries that have parasite issues?
I hear that a lot. So that is something that I can understand people saying. But the process is we have animals, dogs, cats, we deworm them all the time. I have lots of people in this area that have horses. A lot of the people that have the show horses deworm their horses every 2 months. So it's in our food sources, lakes, rivers, food supply. It's everywhere. I don't know how to avoid getting parasites. So I show people, I tell them how I diagnose them with parasites as a joke, but I say, hey, look, let me see your wrist. And I put my fingers on their pulse. And I say, you know what? You got a pulse? You got parasites. and that's the way it is. And they laugh and they joke, oh, hey, you had me going there. And I believe most people have parasites. It's just some aren't affected by it as much, or they're not as overwhelmed with their immune system. And so when you look at getting chronically ill people better, you have to look at that being part of the issue. And yes, there's lots of third world countries, people that from third world countries here in America. We're a global economy now as well. So it's just a different thing. Our food sources come from overseas. Many of our food sources do. And so, yeah, it's here in the United States, just like Lyme is, and they just deny it.
So it's just kind of a funny question when people are like, or a funny statement if they say, we don't have parasites in America. You're on the side that, yeah, we do, and it's a big issue.
Exactly. And there's lots of studies that show billions of people have parasites. So we can't rule out the fact that our population isn't part of the global population and that we don't have parasites. We do.
As you look ahead, and kind of future forecast where the ball's moving, or as Wayne Gretzky would say, he skated where the puck was going, not where it was. So in 5 or 10 years, do you feel like parasites are going to be better understood and better addressed, realizing that it's such an epidemic issue right now?
I believe so. I believe the testing is going to get better. There's some new companies coming out with different testing on the biome, and we'll get a better understanding of how to check that. Currently, I don't think the testing is really good because it doesn't pick up things. And so I believe with technology that we will be able to see the role it plays in the intestinal system and then hopefully systemically.
Well, give the listener an idea of what kind of effects or ramifications do we suffer with if we have parasites in our body? So
many symptoms that we see in our office anyway are skin conditions. Eczema, psoriasis can all be related back to that. Rashes, hives. I see patients that have a problem sleeping, insomnia. There's the bruxism or grinding of teeth is a really good example of people that may have parasites, a symptom that is created from that. Just the chronic illness. If you have chronic illness, you're always getting sick every winter. Digestive issues, gas, bloating. Those are probably some of the biggest issues that people will refer to. Some people actually feel things moving inside them. The other component is liver function and digestive function, between either bile getting from the liver and getting blocked, or your ability to digest protein can really be inhibited with parasites. Muscle fatigue, fibromyalgia, chronic headaches, migraines. There's, really, Jay, there's so many symptoms that can go right back to those things because there's hundreds, if not thousands of types of parasites. And therefore, you can almost relate any type of symptom towards a specific type.
Yeah.
And even seizures, epilepsy, Lyme disease, you see, well, not just Lyme disease, autism. You see people that clear out parasites that have autism and clear out yeast, fungus, and all that biofilm. And man, they're so much more functional in their life by clearing all that gut stuff out.
So you said the bruxism or the grinding of teeth. This is something I believe more people need to understand why. So my understanding is parasites are more active in the evening, like at night while you sleep, and it's a stressor on your body. And then in response to that, we're sleeping, we don't know what's going on, but our body grinds our teeth as we sleep. Is that your interpretation, or do you have a different thought on that?
No, I agree with you. Yeah, that's a good interpretation of that.
So how does parasites fit into the anemia category, cortisol? These are typically massive issues in the Lyme community, even blood sugar.
So those symptoms, I believe, can be really cleared out pretty quickly by addressing the gut. Blood sugar issues, what's happening with blood sugar is if the blood sugar is diving down, well, our body should be kicking into ketosis. So there must be an issue with liver function or breaking down fats within the body, or even breaking down sometimes our own glycogen. People are having a hard time with that. So it's that metabolism in between meals that people are really struggling with, and that can be highly affected by the parasite issues and the liver function. Another one is the cortisol at night spikes due to that stress happening, and you don't sleep. People wake up all the time. It's like, oh, I don't sleep. And well, I've seen many people come into my office that say, hey, I have adrenal fatigue. My adrenals are crashing, And, I almost don't even treat adrenal fatigue anymore because everybody treats that. It's the most popular thing out there. Hey, I have adrenal fatigue. And so with that process, I say, well, you have an infection or you have something else driving adrenal fatigue. Let's see what that is. Is that Lyme? Is that Epstein-Barr? Is that parasites? And then dealing with the anemia, I see that all the time. You can either have ones that are just taking your food sources and minerals, or you can have the ones that are in your blood, the protozoans in your blood breaking your blood cells down. So chronic anemia, you have to seriously consider different types of the parasites. And that's one problem I had for a lot of years. I had both blood sugar issues and anemia going on for many years and not knowing why, just taking stuff to help the anemia and just eating and not fasting, which, now I can fast without crashing.
So instead of taking like the Ferritrol from Designs for Health and getting a ton of iron in, really the goal is to remove the source, and you found parasites to be a big piece to that then.
Exactly. Absolutely. And then there's the absorption of the minerals and nutrition, and then the delivery into the cell so it's utilized. You see a big issue with pyroluria, B6 and zinc deficiencies, and what that creates. And you clear the parasites out. And for me, in my case, and several other people that I've seen, their issues with that was gone.
So you're maybe suspecting the pyroluria. It's like the toughest word for me to say. You're suspecting that has a massive parasite link.
Absolutely. Yep.
Makes so much sense. So, and another gold nugget that I heard you mention right there is this whole nighttime cortisol increasing. So at night, the cortisol is supposed to drop, melatonin is supposed to increase. They're kind of inverse. But when you look at like a salivary or urinary cortisol and you see the cortisol going up, so instead of just focusing when you see, I got high nighttime cortisol, so I have to take some phosphorylated serine or Serifos or something like that, really it's underlying infection. And do you believe that a primary thing is parasites? Do you believe it's more bacterial, viral, combination?
I think it can be a combination, but specifically parasites put off a lot of ammonia, and the ammonia can create that problem. And with the ammonia, you need to get a binder that will help take that and carry it out. And bacteria put off ammonia too, but I think just the sum total of what comes out of the parasites are probably a lot more. And that's why it's really important to address that in that case. But, I think all infections can drive inflammation and drive cortisol issues. I'm not going to say, hey, it's just parasites, because some people it's not. But you have to be sure that you do consider that as a major source to that problem.
Yeah, definitely. What are some things that you favor to help get ammonium out of the body if there's excessive amounts?
Some of the amino acids that do a really good job, you have glutamine, you have L-ornithine, theanine, those really help. There's some products that have all of that in it together. Also supporting some gut function. So in the gut, we want to be sure you're making butyric acid or butyrate. So the Body Bio and there's other companies that have different butyric acids that will help bind ammonia in the gut. The ideal thing there is to provide the prebiotics to the bacteria that then produce the butyrate. And I really like to try and restore the mechanisms of the body so the body can do it on its own. But a lot of times at the beginning, you have to support both processes.
Makes sense. Can you give our listeners a little background of your story? Because if we're at a conference together or hanging out, and I'll introduce you to somebody, I'll say, "Hey, this is Dr. Todd Watts. You definitely got to get to know him. He's the Parasite Guy." I'm kind of giving you that name. Can you give a background of like what did you deal with? Because you were diagnosed with Lyme, and then how did parasites come into the mix?
So, thanks for asking. That's really good, and you're always funny. I always laugh about that. How we do that at the conferences, but
and I totally do that too. So
yeah, you do. So the process is this: when I went to the Lyme, I took a lot of products, and I feel like I cleared out a lot of my arthritic symptoms, but my wrists didn't clear out. So my finger pain cleared up. I had some brain clarity that got better. My low back pain got better, but what didn't get better were my headaches, especially my sensitivity to dairy. Because if I had any exposure to dairy, man, I was out for the count. And the other thing is I couldn't work out for 9 years. And I used to be a gymmer. I used to go to the gym every day, a very active sports guy. And my muscle fatigue was so bad. And it also, if I went out and worked hard, then I would crash and be out for 7 to 10 days. So I had to be careful working out and straining myself. So the getting rid of the Lyme didn't take care of that component of it. So when I searched more into, okay, why am I fatiguing so much? And then I had severe chronic fatigue. That was probably the biggest thing I dealt with. And I was thinking would clear up with getting rid of Lyme and the Babesia, threadworm. Dr. Matthew Buckley, a buddy of mine, a really good friend of mine, helped me and said, Todd, you got threadworm and strongyloides and you got these parasites and some tapeworm. You got to get rid of that stuff. And so when I started going through that process of getting rid of the threadworm, bam, my energy started coming back. All my muscle fatigue went away. I was able to start working out, and the headaches were gone. And I think even getting rid of one of the tapeworms, I noticed that I no longer had the dairy sensitivity and the gluten sensitivity, which would just shut my brain down, and I would fall asleep within 30 minutes of eating gluten. It was bad. And so now I don't have those same food sensitivities anymore because I cleared the parasites and especially the small intestinal threadworm that seem to go everywhere and create a lot of symptoms.
Wow. So getting rid of parasites changed your allergy sensitivities. I mean, if you had dairy when you were really affected with parasites before, how bad of a reaction would you get?
So I would get tightening of my neck muscles, especially on the left side, and then just the suboccipital headache going all the way to the frontal headaches. And I would come home, my wife would be like, oh boy, I know, I would have to take some Advil and just crash for hours, and I couldn't function. So I avoided dairy at all costs. That was one thing I didn't compromise once I found out that I was sensitive to that. And that's what was causing my headaches. And granted, we should be able to break these proteins down that are creating the problems. So if we're sensitive to soy protein, gluten protein from corn, and from dairy, what's a digestive problem? It's not a food allergy problem, it's a digestive problem. That should be what we call a monoamine, or an individual amino acid, right? And that's by doing the parasites. It's like all of a sudden my food allergies, all my seasonal allergies went away. So I no longer have these really bad seasonal allergies that I used to have. So it changed my life dramatically. And, Jay, it comes back to one day that I thought I was doing really well, but my fatigue was there. And I came home from work. And when I came from work one day, I saw my kids playing baseball with my neighbor. And it's like, wow, baseball was my life as a kid growing up. My dad was out there playing with us, coaching our teams. We'd go to the San Diego Padre games. It was huge in the 70s and 80s. And I lived and breathed baseball as a kid. And I love sports. And I wasn't able to help my kids, or I was just too tired to even interact with them. And that was like the punch in the face to me. Is that day changed my life. That I was going to do whatever it took to get my energy back, to be able to function in life again, because I was surviving. I wasn't living my purpose, or even spending the family time that I needed with my kids or my wife.
Yeah, and it sounded like you found your why. You found your motivation to overcome the struggles that you were going through. How do you decide priority, whether it's Lyme or parasites? How do those interact, and what's the relationship?
So deciding priority to me goes back to symptoms. What symptoms are they having? If it was more neurological symptoms, then I'm going to consider treating Lyme at the same time that I treat parasites. But what I found overall as a general thing is if somebody has chronic Epstein-Barr or chronic Lyme or some of these infections, those infections live inside the parasites. So if you want to have more success on treating Lyme and these smaller infections, then you have to treat parasites either right at the same time or as a priority. There's a work done by Dr. Alan McDonald and his breakthrough, and it came out last year in May of 19th. And he stated that they worked with the Rocky Mountain Multiple Sclerosis Center, and they got specimens from deceased patients that had MS. And all the specimens they showed had evidence of Borrelia infected nematodes. So the Borrelia were all inside the nematodes. And then the work done by Dr. Bigdorfer, he wrote that he found nematodes in tick guts. And then another gal in 2014, that was in 1984, in 2014, Dr. Sappi, she said that she examined guts of ticks in southern Connecticut and found that 22% of the nymphs and 30% of the adults carried nematodes in their systems. So there's been proof showing the fact that the nematodes are inside the ticks, and that it could possibly be that bacteria are being carried inside the nematodes into the body.
So when you say nematodes, you're referring to basically a type of parasite.
Yes, it's a classification of parasites, correct.
So these bacteria, do you believe that viruses will also be within a parasite besides just the bacteria like Borrelia?
Yes, exactly. I've treated some kids, they have the molluscum warts, the viral related. And so I've seen that. I treated the parasitic component of that. But I had one kid that had it really bad, even all over his face. He had these bumps that were growing big. And we'd done a lot of viral treatments on him and just we weren't having success. And then I put him on a parasitic protocol. Within a month, it cleared out.
Wow. So these smaller bugs, then viruses, bacteria, will live within bigger things, like you said, parasites. And then the parasite ends up in those circumstances being a priority because otherwise the immune system essentially can't get to the smaller bugs that are within the parasite.
Exactly. So in my journey, I think I kept hitting Lyme back and I felt really good. And then I crashed again. They come in and out, or you hit the ones that are out and about. But what about the ones inside of the parasites? Maybe we weren't killing those off. And Dr. Klinghardt talks about that. So does Dr. Simon Yu. And there's many other doctors that really are proponents of treating the parasites with the same philosophy.
Yeah, well, I think this is just I believe this is a groundbreaking idea to understand, is that these bugs that we're trying to kill could live inside of bigger, if you want to call parasites bugs too, living inside these bigger pathogens like parasites. And if you're hitting a wall with mono Epstein-Barr virus, HHV and Bartonella and Borrelia, that it literally could be these bigger components like parasites holding you back. And I remember, so we've been friends the last couple of years now, and I remember at one of the conferences we were at, you started showing me pictures of stuff people were getting out on your phone, like pictures of parasites. And I was grossed out, but so intrigued. I'm like, what? You're seeing people get that stuff out of them. And you're very pleasant, and I don't want to say shy, but you're not, like screaming at people about parasites. Like your demeanor is just very calm and, just kind of soothing. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, this is amazing. Like, what are you doing? And you're like, well, it's just, I've got a product that I've created, and of course right away I'm like, I want to try this. Like I've done parasite cleanses before. I haven't seen anything in my stool, so I had assumed based on that I didn't have a parasite issue. And so you're like, okay, well, I'll send you some of this product, and I'll let you to fill in the details here. But you sent me the product. I was taking it 16 days later, and I'm not one to like dig in my stools, but 16 days later, I'm like, that looks kind of weird sticking out of my stool. So I took like a stick and poked it, and sure enough, it was like a 6-inch worm. And I text you and I'm like, Todd, I got a 6-inch worm out. And then you're like, oh, that's awesome, And then a week later, you're like, no, my original formula is better. Jay, you got to take this. 5 days into the new formula, which was your original formula, now what you call the Para 1, and I'll let you get to this here too, but 5 days in, I'm going to the bathroom, I go to wipe, and I'm like, that didn't feel right. And I look down, and there's these things hanging out of me, and I get kind of freaked out. And we happened to be at a conference. I was actually at a conference with you. It was here in San Diego, and my wife and daughter were in the room. Actually, my brother-in-law was in the room as well. And I'm like, I yelled at my wife. I'm like, Heather, get over here. And of course, my daughter comes running over first. At the time, she was 4. She still is 4, about turned 5 now. But look down, and she's like, Daddy, why do you have string hanging out of your butt? And I'm like, Heather, get over here. And I literally had to take some toilet paper and pull these things slowly out. There were 2 20-inch worms. And it was like the next month and a half, I was just getting worms out, and it just completely blew me away. So for our listeners, can you lay some knowledge down about this product that you have and then results that you've seen with it?
Okay, so that's a great story, Jay. I did the same thing, and I've had to do the same thing. It's like, whoa, I could feel it sliding through my intestines while I was pulling it out. But I've had multiple patients. The one guy, he's passed like 4 tapeworms that were probably 6 feet plus long. And, it's amazing what this stuff does. Part of what it does is it helps to, I think, suffocate those parasites to where they can't get the oxygen or anything that they need, and they just pull out and come out. Another thing that the product does is I have a belief that mucus layer that we build up in our intestines due to inflammation in our diets and cooked food, that can build up and then create a barrier where these parasites can go in and out of it, and you don't know that they're there. Also, I think it holds toxins in and bad bacteria and yeast, fungus, and a bad biome. And it just helps to peel that stuff off and clear it out, which then helps to clear parasites. I'm working with this one gal. She's a little bitty thing. And we were laughing. She was in the other day. She showed me pictures. And she said, I could literally, Dr. Watts, I could fill up a bucket with these, look like spaghetti worms, right? So I could fill a bucket up with what's coming out of me. And you would never believe that somebody as small as what she was could have that much in her. And we see that with so many patients of ours. I've seen people pass stuff within 2 days of taking the product. And whether they're passing parasites, because they get multiple things out. Parasites, mucoid plaque, ropeworm, however you want to designate that, it gets it and pulls it out and releases it from the body. And it's really helped a lot of people that had a lot of severe food sensitivities and even chronic pain, migraines, headaches, and many other symptoms.
So what is this product?
So the product is an herbal product called Mimosa pudica, and there's several other ones on the market, but we take specifically a part of the plant that's picked off and then goes through a process that's cleaned and then ground up, and then we're coming out with another formula that has clove and some enzymatic processes that will help deal with the parasites. But essentially that's what it is. So I don't know anybody else out there that sells it that has the same formulation that we do. The other products don't have the same results because they're more of a water soluble based product, where ours is more of a fat soluble based stuff that just sticks onto everything in the gut.
Yeah, and I would concur. I mean, I've been, ever since I was freaked out having a couple of 20-inch worms and all these other worms come out, I immediately started integrating in with my clients, and I've seen repeat things, I mean, consistently. And do you believe that in order for us to get parasites out, that this Para 1 product, that's the name of it, Mimosa pudica, the special type that you have, that this is the only thing that people need?
No. I believe that there's so many different types that there's multiple products that they use. So I have 30 different anti-parasitic products in my office that I use with patients. And we've even, some patients, even Dr. Red, who's an osteopathic physician in our office, who has written prescriptions for patients that are really bad and has really made a big difference in their lives. And some of those prescriptions, the great thing about them is they're not similar to antibiotics where they kill the gut flora. They paralyze parasites. And then with our product, we help to sweep it out and pull it out. And we've seen patients that have had chronic diarrhea or chronic constipation for many, many years normalized for the first time in their lives.
Wow. So is it safe to say then Para 1 product that you have was just kind of I don't want to say just a good additional tool, but it fits into essentially almost any parasite protocol then?
Yeah, it could definitely. But I think it fits into almost every GI protocol, because you think about, if you want to create a good, healthy microbiome, you got to get all the gunk buildup out of there anyways. So whether it's parasites or whether it's mucoid plaque or buildup of mucus, you want to clear it out so you can reestablish that new microbiome. And I have patients on it for at least 6 months. And I have one gal, she's been on it for 3 years. And she's on a maintenance dose where she takes one a day. And it keeps her regular. It keeps her her whole system just functioning so much better, because she's gone off of it. And then she always comes back and says, hey, I just need a little bit of that stuff. And yeah, it's been a lifesaver for many people. And I'm formulating a couple other parasitic products as well, anti-parasitic products, to go with it. And then also some products that I'm working with a team of biochemists that will bind toxins at a level that's just amazing, binding glyphosate and heavy metals. And not only does it bind the toxins, but it also helps to repair the cell membranes in the gut, and then also deliver nutrients through the whole digestive system and then into the blood and then into the cells. So it's a prebiotic to the good bacteria, and a prebiotic not just in the gut, but to the bacteria throughout the body.
What's your thoughts about this Para 1 product, just listeners buying it, using it? Is there some complexities to it, or is it pretty straightforward, easy to use?
Good question. There are some issues there with people. If they're constipated, they need to be sure they're moving their bowels, no matter what parasite program or detox program they're doing. It can cause a little constipation at first because it's releasing things out through the body. So it's important to be sure that you're doing, whether it's enemas or a magnesium product or something that will help move your body systems and your bowel movements through. Some people feel things release off their intestines. They can have some bloating. They can have some pain, cramping, but that goes away. And usually the next day you're seeing something come out. And some people I've seen get headaches and even release. Sometimes you see viruses and things that are released. So that's where I like to make sure people are taking a good antimicrobial to offset anything else that gets exposed out there.
Makes sense. So basically, like my understanding is when the parasite dies, then these bugs that are within it, let's say Borrelia or other bacteria or viruses, they get released. So then having something that can additionally like boost the immune system so the immune system's not overwhelmed when these things get released is just kind of a good basic plan with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, absolutely.
So what would be doses? So if one capsule a day is kind of a maintenance one, the one lady that's been taking it for a few years now, where do you start dosing wise?
Normally I start 2 twice a day on an empty stomach. And from there I move up. So we get them going with the process, depending on how big they are, the weight, how much muscle mass and everything. I will bump it up to 3 twice a day. Some people I've seen 4 twice a day, and then all of a sudden just like major stuff being released. So it depends on the patient. If things are coming out and being released, one of my guys, he's amazing. I mean, he's on day 82 of a water fast right now. Talk about releasing parasites and clearing stuff out. This guy has really cleared a lot out. But at first, he's like, I don't see anything coming out. I said, look, you might have to get a fork or something out there to move that stuff around and see what it is. And he showed a picture to me the other night. It looked like just some poop coming out. And he got in there and spread it out, and it was 3 worms that were all wrapped up in together. And so you may not think you're passing stuff, but then once you start going through your stool, and he gloved up and he'd get in there, and man, he passed a ton of stuff. But he lived in Brazil for 2 years, so exposure to a lot of stuff in Brazil that somebody here may not have got as much exposure to was probably part of his issues.
So have your gloves, your plastic forks in the bathroom.
Yeah, or chopsticks. Another thing, people use chopsticks. So you get in there.
I mean, when you're passing parasites, then you see it. I mean, you reference this right away at the beginning, the Shrek quote, always better out than in. But I mean, you will literally physically see it the majority of the time.
With this stuff, yeah. But there's a lot of parasites that you won't see. A lot of times people don't see the threadworm or the microscopic ones coming out. And what we do with that is we look at the component of symptoms. Have the symptoms changed?
Okay.
So an example I got a call from a mother in Florida. She said, hey, look, my daughter's had a lot of pain urinating. And so I don't know what to do. I've been to all these specialists, urologists. Everybody says she's fine. There's no bacteria, no yeast, nothing going on. And so I did some of the muscle testing that I do and came up with a schistosome and did research on it. And it can cause bladder, pain and urination and bladder pain. It's found in water. So I asked her, like, hey, you guys been swimming anywhere lately or around the time that she got these issues? And she said, yeah, we were up in Ohio visiting and went swimming in a lake. Within a couple of days after that, she started having pain. So the best treatment for an acute case like that was a drug, medication. And so I referred her to a physician, prescribed it, and 3 days later, the pain was gone after 7 weeks of a lot of pain. And her mom was just so happy because she didn't know what to do at that point in time.
Wow. What other type of symptoms have you seen being relieved from clearing parasites out or dealing with parasites? I'm still picturing in my head. And I think I saw the picture of your patient with the 6-foot tapeworm holding up. He had a glove on and, It was like holding up to his head level. And he had like this awkward look, like, look what came out of me. And I won't forget that picture because it's crazy. But what other symptoms or changes have you seen with clients and patients clearing parasites out?
I had a gal from Montana that came to see me, and she had hives for a year long and had seen many specialists, and nothing was working. And so her mom encouraged her to come down and see me, and we put her on a protocol. Within 10 days, she passed about a 6.5-foot tapeworm, and she hasn't had hives now in almost 2 years. And we also see the chronic fatigue thing, man. The fatigue is a big thing we see done, as well as the fibromyalgia and muscle fatigue. So not just chronic fatigue, but muscle fatigue. And then people start sleeping better. And when you get that, you can start healing a lot quicker by getting your rest. So I could go through story after story of patients just getting their lives back and getting their energy back and being able to function in life. I've seen chronic back pain. I had a gal that had chronic back pain down her legs for years and had done MRIs and just all kinds of medical stuff, and then chiropractic and acupuncture and many things. And when she passed, the amount of worms that she passed, boom, gone. It took a number of them to get out, but she just slowly kept having improvement as she kept passing her parasites. And then I had another one that had 10 years of migraines and had multiple patients with headaches and migraines that hadn't been able to get relief. And through passing parasites, the migraines are gone, no more headaches. Then women with menstrual stuff, right? Around menstrual period of time, their bodies, the way they reacted, either heavy menstruation, imbalance in hormones, the stress that parasites can put on the body and affect so many different things in the body, it normalizes when you get rid of them. So it's been really good to see those parts, and also looking at seizures and considering the fact that GABA is interfered with because toxoplasmosis can inhibit the GAD67 enzyme, which creates then an excitatory state, which then you can't relax, you can't sleep, you get anxiety, you have less secretion of growth hormone, so then you can't grow muscle. The parasites are just, Dr. Davidson, they're just amazing because they have their own antioxidant system to defend against our oxidant system, ROS system. And not only that, but they're also dependent upon anaerobic glycolysis. So they're producing lactic acid because of that, and they're producing ammonia as a byproduct, which a lot of that can create so many issues, but epilepsy is one of them.
Wow, they produce their own antioxidants.
Yeah, they have a similar system to what we have. There's a case study that was done that I got off PubMed, and they had all these doctors that talk about their ROS system and how it will do that. And that's why they're that low-level hidden infection that just tiny bit suppresses our systems and just causes these problems that we just don't know about. And they're able to survive because of that.
That's amazing. What age can you start with a little one? Because I'm just thinking, okay, what if mom has parasites? Can that get passed on to the little one? And then at what age can you start clearing parasites out of someone?
So yes, moms definitely can pass parasites on to their children. And that's where we see a lot of eczema issues. I've seen kids head to toe with eczema that we've cleared out parasites on. I've cleared out 7-month-old, 8-month-old babies that had a lot of problems, and even colicky babies at the beginning. You just have to use the appropriate solution with that, whether it's using essential oils, whether it's using homeopathics, whether it's really low dose of herbals. It just depends on what the problem is and what clinically you can think that you can do that would be safe for the infant. But I've seen even 2-year-olds pass 2-foot-long worms.
Wow. Do kids get freaked out when they pass that big of a worm?
I don't think they know. It just comes out, and then the mom looks in the toilet and wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was still a shock to me. So if somebody starts getting, they start taking your Para-1 product, what's the brand?
So the brand is CellCore Biosciences, CELCORE Biosciences. And for the kids, a lot of times they just take the capsule out and put it into some maple syrup or something in that realm that they then be able to swallow it. That's the best way to get it to kids.
Otherwise, train your kids how to swallow a capsule early.
I've seen 3-year-olds swallow capsules. I know my kids took a little longer than that to do it, though.
My daughter's almost 5, and we tried a couple months ago, and it was a disaster. So I'm like,
exactly.
I'll wait a little longer. But I just had another practitioner on the summit that they just said peer pressure. Just get him around another kid that can swallow, and it'll totally make it happen. So I'm like, all right, I'll try the peer pressure route.
That's a good way. I'll have to try that with my kids.
So if somebody has digestive issues, you're seeing parasites being a huge piece to that. Is there any other important tips or things that you would recommend in really reestablishing a healthy gut?
So I've dealt with several cases of SIBO, and these patients have seen many experts in the arena that we know of SIBO, and they still have the same problem. When I put them on the protocol, the parasites and the mucoid plaque came out big time. So I believe in reestablishing the good microbiome, you have to get the gutter and the sewer and all the garbage out of there. And the prebiotic, to me, is really important. And then binders that will go in and bind onto those toxins and bind onto the glyphosate and all the things that we get exposed to pull it out. So to really establish the great microbiome, which is really important to have good bacteria that will help us get our nutrients, because like vitamin K2 and different B vitamins are really broken down and produced by the good bacteria. The good bacteria also helps in our digestion, in our digestive process as well. So we have how many species of bacteria? 100,000 species of bacteria in our bodies. And I just think that throwing in 5 different forms of probiotic or bacteria isn't going to really cut it. So we have to provide a good environment first, and then from there, good food for the right bacteria. And that's my approach with that.
Define a prebiotic, or give us an example of what a prebiotic would be.
There's different types of prebiotics, and depends where the bacteria is. So in the large intestine, the bacteria there, we want to have a resistant starch that will actually make it there. So there's these molecules that are these polysaccharide sugar molecules that feed the bacteria. And we have products working with these biochemists that help have these products that can deliver that to the bacteria to really give them a really good fuel source to survive and to be able to do what they need to do. As far as a really good probiotic, part of the process is providing the right signaling between the organisms, and then the other one is delivering those polysaccharides that would make them viable and that help them to utilize energy. And that's my approach, really. I'll have that product on the market by the time this conference, this summit is there. We'll have the product on the market to help with that.
As we're wrapping this interview up, Dr. Todd, any final thoughts, words of wisdom, things you want to leave the listener with?
I believe that to overcome overall infections, the Lyme, the Epstein-Barr, the co-infections, you have to seriously consider, again, the parasites. Because it could be parasites that are mimicking similar symptoms as those. And if our body's overwhelmed with so many different types of infections, where do you even start? So I start with the larger organisms, will work my way down unless there's acute symptoms of it. If there's acute symptoms of bacteria and Lyme and viruses, then I also address those together. You have more success by addressing those together than you do the bacteria or the viruses by itself. If there's a takeaway, that's the takeaway. The other thing is obviously restoring the microbiome, clearing all that mucoid plaque, clearing all the parasites out of there, getting that working really well is really important, and then opening up your detox pathways. Then the liver and the kidneys and the gut and the lymph is super important as well. And that's the process that I always take, which is very similar to what you do, which is why we, I think, connect really well on it.
I think so. Well, I want to thank you so much, Todd, for joining me on the Chronic Lyme Disease Summit number 2 today.
Thanks, Dr. J, for having me here, and I'm super excited for listening to all the interviews that you've done and hear all the great doctors that have contributed to this.
Oh, yeah. Definitely life-changing stuff. So as you've heard from Dr. Todd Watts, the Parasite Guy himself, take care of those parasites, clear them out of the body. It can be just a game changer in your health. And it's important with Lyme disease and other mysterious illnesses that we look at the body as a whole holistically. And Lyme is more than just a tick bite. So definitely take this life-saving, life-transforming information home with you by clicking on the banner beside or below. And be sure to share this with your friends and loved ones. If there's anybody that said that we don't have parasites in America, this is an interview for them to listen to. Just so informative and can just really be a game changer. So, and don't forget to visit Dr. Todd Watts at drtoddwatts.com. So doctor is Dr. Todd, Todd, and then Watts, Watts. So drtoddwatts.com. You will not be disappointed. Maximum blessings. This is Dr. J. Davidson.